Hey, what's going on? Ryan, setthepacetriathlon.com. Gonna do a quick little tip for today. Today is Thursday, and hopefully you can hear me over the mowers working outside. Don't have any way to get around that, but here, let me move you to a good position to where you can see me, and I can see my notes, because that's important. Because today we're going to talk about run and bike cadence, as long as my phone doesn't fall over. This is totally the most unorganized Facebook tip that I've done so far, not setting up my phone the correct way, so please bear with me. All right, we got you going. So I want to talk about bike and run cadence. Quick little take on that. I've done videos on run cadence specifically and bike cadence specifically, but this is kind of a general overview because it covers a lot of ground and a lot of what I look at as far as metrics go in my athletes, especially when I'm doing virtual coaching, over Training Peaks or any other Final Surge, Triathlon. I always try to look at that cadence metric because that tells me a couple things. Because if you're working at too high, if you've got a bike cadence of 100 RPM or 95 RPM, you're probably spinning a little bit too much. So you're going to wear yourself out cardio-wise trying to get your legs to move so fast like a hamster on the wheel. But on the opposite end, if you're going too slow, if you're at like 70, 65 RPMs, you're pushing some big gears and you're kind of pushing a little bit more power than you probably need to, and it's going to maybe come to bite you later, or that could be also an issue for injury, especially on the bike. If you're pushing 60 RPM and you're pushing pretty hard to either keep speed or keep power or something like that, in that situation, I have some intervals for strength work, where you're at 20 seconds, maybe you're doing 65 RPMs, and then you do a recovery session where you get back up to 80. So that's my sweet spot, especially for the bike, is 80 to 90 RPM. And conversely, it's also kind of the sweet spot for running. So if you're looking at single-sided, that's going to be 80 to 90 RPM. And then if you're looking at double-sided, it's 160 to 180. So I find that that's kind of the good, there's the low range, there's high range, and there's kind of the sweet spot right in between. And that's just where I like to see my athletes, because you want to be efficient and not go spin your legs too fast or run too fast. And you also want to conserve, the big muscle groups, that you have to incorporate to push either bigger gears or to take longer strides, and you're hitting with more force on the ground. So if you're not, spacing out how many times you hit the ground, you're kind of going further in that distance, and you're taking your weight and you're smashing it into the ground for longer distances. So it's, physics and momentum and all that kind of stuff. So I like to see it in that good, nice range. And look at my notes here. Higher cadence gives you more energy over the ride and reserve for the run. So that's a really big thing, especially for the bike. Like I said, if you're spinning too fast, especially 56 miles, 112 miles, if you're spinning about 95 RPM, you're gonna probably spin yourself out of energy by the end of the ride, and you're gonna be kind of probably pretty toasted, and your legs are gonna be pretty wiped out. But conversely, if you go with 65 RPM and you're just trying to smash your gears, trying to keep your speed, you're going to find yourself in the other end of the boat where you're going to be totally toast because you've got no muscular endurance left. So you got to be careful with that. Now, like I said, for the run, it's about the same thing as the 80 to 90 RPM, because if you're running efficiently and your form is good, that cadence should come a little bit natural. You can control it. If you're leaning at your ankles, don't lean at your waist, lean at your ankles. So that's a good, comparison, right? So if you're leaning at your ankles, you can control your cadence by how much you lean. You lean a little bit, you kind of force yourself to go forward a little bit, lean a little bit more. You could test that out by marching in place and just kind of barely lean at the ankles, and it'll make you go forward because gravity wants to pull you forward, and you either put a foot down or you fall on your face on the ground. So that's a good way to control cadence rather than shorten your steps or being choppy with your running or anything and trying to force your foot to come down early. That just is not good form at all, and it can cause all kinds of other problems. So you got to make sure you're careful with that. So yeah, you got to control the cadence by controlling your form for the run, and you should have similar cadence. 12-minute miles, 8-minute miles. If you're doing sprints, maybe a little bit faster, but you always want a good cadence and good form to go hand in hand, especially if you're speeding up, maybe your cadence gets a little bit higher, but you're not wildly, you're not going, and biking, like I said, you're going to probably vary your cadence if you're doing strength work, speed work, that type of thing. But the same goes with the run. if you're out there and you're kind of on the slower end of 10 minutes per mile, or you're quicker end at 8-7 minutes per mile, if you're finding that sweet spot where you're kind of, your long course endurance speed, your cadence really shouldn't vary from slower to faster. Now, if you're out there doing track sprints, you'll probably be a little bit different, but in the end, when you're varying your speed on the run, your cadence really shouldn't change. So that's why your form should lead your cadence, and why you shouldn't force a cadence. So anyway, that was just a quick little tip. I just wanted to bring that up to you, talking about the bike and the run cadence. That's my quick tip. I always look for those metrics in my athletes when they do a workout on Training Peaks, Final Surge, TriDot, whatever. So that's kind of one thing I look at to make sure that they're in that sweet spot, so they're not going too fast and inefficient, and they're not going too slow, and they're burning up too much muscular endurance, especially on the bike ride when we get into the run, or especially early in the run. So, if you got any questions, put them in the comments. I know I went through that kind of fast, but that's what I like to do with the Facebook Lives, so you don't get too bored listening to me talk. I know I got this great hat, so that makes it a little bit more visually interesting. So, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I post this to YouTube later, so put them in the comments there. Send me an email, info@setthepacetriathlon.com. Visit the website, www.setthepacetriathlon.com. Ask me questions there. Fill out the contact form any way you got to do it, and I'll be happy to get back to you. So with that, happy training out there, and we will see you on race day. We're going to be back in 2021. See you there.